Unless it's the W.G. Grace inquiry and I've slightly missed things.
You both cleverly recognised lots of people there, but I didn't get a story out of you.
Now, that's what Hutton said about them. And there was one hearing this week. There's a man called Kevin Tebbit. He was recalled because there's this...
Is he 40?
He was recalled because one of the issues is the Prime Minister, when he was asked straight away, said, I had nothing to do with David Kelly's name coming into the public domain. I had nothing to do with it. And then they had the inquiry, and he was there for a number of meetings. And all the witnesses have said the Prime Minister was there. Now, you and I wouldn't take that long to put those two things together. Straightforward denial, somebody else saying it's entirely untrue. What's the conclusion?
Kevin Tebbit.
That's certainly a conclusion.
So, Ian, who didn't resign?
I haven't.
Neither have I.
No.
Although it can surely only be a matter of time.
The general...
So, this is the Hutton inquiry into the death of Minister of Defence Chief Scientist Dr. David Kelly, or as the Sun called him, Tragic Boffin. According to the Sun, following his performance over the summer, Defence Secretary Geoff Hoon faced a roasting. Unfortunately, we're not allowed to name the Premiership players involved. Paul and Claire, he said he'd be back.
The clues in the huge Arnold we see at the back there. He's given birth! There he is. Is it true you can't play the guitar? Yes, look. Well, he's Governor of California.
The Terminator single-handedly destroying politics.
That is the story, exactly. How did Arnie describe the decision to run for the governorship?
In a torturous Austrian accent?
Well, those are his films.
Ah.
He said he'd give it a feel, and if it felt right, he would go for it. I would think. That being his way.
He actually said that it was the toughest decision I've made since deciding to get a bikini wax in 1978. Just get the impression from this guy, his whole world is politics, don't you? And what were the allegations that nearly scuppered him?
He likes Hitler, and
he likes to grape women.
He likes to grape women against their will.
And how did he dismiss the allegations?
I didn't do
raping?
it. I did not mean that Hitler. I did not mean a German guy. I know a guy who sells pumpernickel near where I live. Adolf Hitler, I think, is a good man. I did not grope any woman. Go and look at her.
The word he used was being playful. And to support his claim, here is a photo of him being playful. And what's Arnie's Kennedy connection now?
Well, he married a Kennedy. That's his interest in politics.
And he groped like a Kennedy.
What did his future mother-in-law give him as an engagement present?
A false pair of breasts.
She gave him a Labrador, and she told her daughter to watch the way he treated the dog, because one day that'll be the way he treats the kids. And a couple of years later, what did he do? He ran over the dog.
He drives an enormous Humvee, doesn't he?
A Hummer, yes, he does. So you wouldn't have even felt it. This is Arnold Schwarzenegger's election as Governor of California. In his bodybuilding days, Schwarzenegger was known as the Austrian Oak, and then he started acting and became known as the Austrian Oak. So, at the end of that round, Paul and Claire have 4, and Ian and Clement have 4.
Hooray!
Round 2 is the tabloid headline round. Ian and Clement, sorry we ate your vicar.
This is the Fijians who ate vicars, and other people as well. Say something.
There was a man called the Reverend Thomas Baker.
Well done, yes.
Who boldly went to Fiji to spread the word.
Mm-hmm.
And accidentally hit the king on the head. He brushed him with his hand, which you're not allowed to do to Fijian kings. Mm-hmm. So the king turned around with an axe and took his head off.
He left a comb in the chief's hut, and the chief thought this was a present, so he put it in his hair like that. Mm-hmm. And when the Reverend saw, oh, that's my comb, he made the mistake, which you must never do with a Fijian chief, of touching his head.
And of course, by the time he cut his head off, the comb's no good to him anyway.
But his descendants have come back to England to say sorry.
And the relatives are flying out to be apologised to, like they gave a toss anyway.
Do they know the comb story, or is history going to repeat itself again?
Apart from the apology, what else are they doing?
Big dinner, apparently.
I've heard it's just a finger buffet. So he's eaten, and what was he served with?
What would you serve with a Methodist, Clement?
With a bit...
He passed the sauce, surely.
Yes.
They react as if for years we've been listening to eating Methodist gags. Yeah. What was having a news for you last night? That was all right, the same old eating Methodist gags.
He did the pasta one, unbelievable.
This is the news that villagers in Fiji are to apologise to the family of a missionary their ancestors ate 136 years ago. According to the Times, the Reverend Thomas Baker was eaten alongside a typical vegetarian dish, or hippie. Cannibal feasts were once commonplace on the islands of Fiji, and by tradition, any leftovers were sent to the Sandwich Islands. Paul and Claire, your spinning headline. A cheeky little number with a surprising finish.
Yes. Now, this was the couple that went into a restaurant, a very posh restaurant, and they chose a bottle of wine. It was like £130, and the wine waiter said, "Oh, you can do better than that." I mean, this is a lovely one. This is a lovely wine. It says it's fine, and it was only when they saw the bill that it was £800.
If that happened to you, what would you have done?
I denied that I was me. I'd say I'm not here. My missionary was tough. I didn't think he was quite dead. He's eating all the potatoes.
Why has the restaurant Petrus been in the news before? Anyone remember that?
Yes.
Good. I can remember it as well.
Some people from some city men spent £40,000 on very expensive wines.
And the potatoes were from 1968, which was an excellent year for the stuff.
Did the couple then, they did complain, didn't they?
They've been offered, by way of an apology, a free meal by head chef Marcus Waring, with the wine chosen by the head sommelier this time.
A free bottle of Matches
So
Rosé,
he'll
they'll be happy.
This is the story of the waiter who recommended a bottle of wine, but neglected to mention that it cost £800. One restaurant critic said, "What surprises me is that the couple paid." Yes, I felt sorry for them too. In fact, I've invited them round to my Magic Bean shop. So, at the end of this round, it's Ian and Clement with 6, and Paul and Claire with 6.
3.
The odd one out round is next. Ian and Clement, your 4 are George W. Bush, Jonathan King, David Blaine, and the Cabinet.
Well, 3 of them are illusionists, and one of them is just a paedophile.
Well done. 4 points.
I don't feel I can add to that helpful. David Blaine, he's still alive, is he? As we speak?
Who cares?
A friend of mine's got this theory that when the crane goes up there to wash the box, a double sneaks in under the blanket.
That's exactly what happens.
The real David Blaine gets in the crane, goes down again into the cabin, has a huge breakfast, meets his girlfriend, watches the telly. Next morning, crane goes up, wash, under the blanket again.
That's exactly what happens.
You know this, do you?
Well, he'd be seriously ill now if he was doing it for real. And he's a magician, so magicians don't do things for real. Apart from when they get their throats ripped out by tigers. What? Which started out as a card trick. Tigers don't like being made fools of. No. Is that the card you were thinking of?
I have no evidence for that at all. I just mention it because someone said it.
No, it's quite true. That's how it's done.
But we haven't got an odd one out yet, and you've got nowhere near. So
tell us which one it is.
It could be a bit of a poison chalice. Oh, for God's sake, come on.
Just tell them. Put them out of their ignorance.
David Blaine is the odd one out because he's the only one who hasn't had his food tested.
The Cabinet all have
Here
their
you go,
food
splitting
tested.
hairs again because you couldn't get the answer.